I am the forever DM
Same,
because
yes.
I have too many thoughts and ideas, and they're best used for RPGs, apparently. I also have a terrible habit of having to lean into the joke and it being near impossible for me not to, which means that the more chaotic games work best.
My name's Rich.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Renegade Rolls. I'm joined by Josh of Hivemind Games. Josh, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How you doing, Rich?
I'm full of joy, full of biscuits. Actually, it's a good day today. It's a really good day. How did Hivemind Games start?
That was a product of lockdown, having too much time on our hands. That was me and my partner in crime at the time, Corey, decided to have a stab at it because we're both tabletop obsessed and had loads of furlough time on our hands.
So while some people make sourdough, some people like me watch all of Star Trek, other people found businesses.
I did start baking bread and also get through DS9.
Has it been everything you hoped and dreamed it would be?
It's a mixed bag, right? Because the scene is awesome, the people are incredible, getting to work on games full time is awesome, and also getting to work full times on games can be quite painful. There's all the business side of things as well, and the organizing manufacturing is a nightmare, and fulfillment. But I definitely wouldn't be doing anything else. I didn't quite realize how much the TTRPG scene suited me until I was waist deep in the water with everyone else, and like I kind of had a moment where I looked around and was like, oh damn, like everyone in here I've now like met in passing at least and stuff, and like cool, queer, lefty, ADHD, both triple. I'm like, these are my people. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wore my tofu eating wokarati T-shirt to one of the days of the convention at Tabletop Scotland, and I ended up having like sort of 5 conversations just based on that alone. It's like
it's such a nice space. It really is. I think the old grognards really are a dying breed.
Well, I think a lot of the players who've been playing for decades and decades, a lot of them are actually allies as well. I think it maybe does a disservice to say, oh yeah, the old generation are all sort of one certain thing. From what I've seen, the ones who've sort of stuck in the hobby, and it's certainly the ones in sort of the indie spaces as well, they are, well, I'd say almost like the pioneers of setting up like some of these sort of safe spaces and places where sort of people in the historical outgroups can feel more welcome. And I'm sure there are still tables where sort of people are just in their own little right-wing bubble, but I think
I mean someone's buying copies of Varg Vikernes's bloody game, I suppose, but I've not seen any of those types at the cons and stuff. I have, I've been acquainted with some people at Paizo, some folks at Steamforged Games in the UK and stuff like that, and the folks from Paizo being awesome. There was some stuff where they were deliberately asking my pronouns and things, and I have pronouns. It's nice to sort of be seen in that regard, and for it to be super high up the ladder at Paizo. Like they're huge and they're still allies and nice, and also like super passionate about games still. It really does feel like, actually, I think from the top down, the old grognards, the stereotypical right-wingy types are just a very, very loud minority on the internet, and don't really turn up in the real life spaces.
Brother Y is a game that I've played already, like in the last month, probably 4 or 5 times, having an absolute blast with it. How did that come about? What was the genesis, if you'll excuse a Bible word, for creating the game?
Sure. So me and Corey were still working together at that point. I was working with another friend of ours to write Eye to the Void, and there was basically just sort of 3 months of me and David writing that. And Corey had some time on her hands waiting for us to get the final draft over to her for laying out. she ended up putting together a improv-y, like I think the main sort of game mode she put together first was you have to like try and preach a full sermon, and then the repercussions catch up with you as a traveling religious con people. And yeah, that ended up getting whittled down between the two of us into the current game mode, which is you get your Bible quote, your very serious quote, and your silly little guy, and you have to try and justify why you shouldn't get a medieval telling off. It really was fun enough, like, just to, I guess, to go back, like, that was the one time where we were discarding stuff because, like, okay, that's not fun. It has to be silly and fun, and it's the only time I've ever just straight aimed for those things, I guess, in an RPG. Especially weird for us because everything we'd written up to that point was kind of dark and occult. That was our brand at that point.
Was there anything, so I assume you've been sort of a player of games for a long, long time. Was there anything sort of looking at the industry from the outside thinking, oh, I could do that? Is there anything at the end found as you got into it where you just hadn't seen coming and things you maybe only appreciate now that you're making things for yourself?
I've definitely got a deeper appreciation of games and clever mechanics. Because, not only do you have fun playing them, but you have that moment where it's like, wow, this is a really elegant, clean way of something that could be very complicated. And I have an appreciation of that, or more of an appreciation for that, because now I know how hard it is to land that.
One of the things that I found when sort of trying to pick a game to play, say I've gone to Board Game Cafe or something, is I'll look at, I don't know, some of the big beasts and think, yeah, I could play that, but I don't have 6 hours of my life to learn to like pick up the rules and things. So I have a really big appreciation for games where the rules fit on one page and you can be off and playing in like 5 minutes. And it's something I very much enjoy about games like Brother Y and similar ones, where you just start playing, you go, you figure it out, and you're already having a great time even just reading through the rulebook.
I found something similar with it. Is a bigger game, but the Darkest Dungeon board game has got several systems and phases, and you have your heroes and you level up and you can play them across multiple sessions, you get XP and stuff. But all of the systems are incredibly easy to find. Like me and a couple of pals were playing inside of 20-25 minutes properly, which I've never had for a long form game like that before.
If the onboarding for new players takes too long, if we need to run a session 0, or we need to really say, nope, we need to talk about what we're doing in this game before we actually get to playing the game, chances are you'll lose me along the way, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
I think there's definitely a shift towards that at the minute, and I'm right with you. It's one that I'm absolutely down for, particularly as I get older. Finding 6 people who are free every single week for 6 hours, 5 hours at a time, plus session 0, plus the DM who's got to write it is a tall order.
I really enjoy like narrative style for TTRPGs, really getting into the characters, finding out who they are. And so me as a player, I love sharing like little details that I think of, and me as a GM, I love making the world with lots of tasty little bits and nuggets and things. The challenge of getting a group even to that stage where you need easily 3 or 4 sessions to even begin to get to that, I've kind of grown to accept that if I'm doing a one-shot in a TTRPG, or if I'm playing a board game or something, I'm not going to get that depth of experience if I'm just playing something for the first time. So I realise now what I want is a much more sort of direct experience. If I'm just saying, hey, it's Friday night, I'm not going out, I'm not going to the bar. I hate going to bars on Friday night, it's too busy, it's full of people. But having some friends over, let's play something we can be up and running and actually having fun, making nonsense as quick as possible.
Yeah, there are some really, really fun games for that. I mean, Paranoia is the one that jumps to mind for me for that kind of experience every time. Just sit down and let the chaos happen. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes out soon from the wonderful, wonderful minds behind indie TTRPGs. In terms of something that's got that depth, but is still simple. I am sure there is someone working on it right now.
Do you think that the AI revolution and the inevitable counter-revolution is going to push people away from screens and background table playing games again?
I am actually not sure if the downfall, the the righteous downfall of AI will lead to a change in gaming habits, because I kind of assume that everyone's already playing the way they want to or can, if you get me in that regard. If playing online was kicked off by AI, perhaps, but yeah, I think it suits people the way they play at the minute. I personally will always aim to play a physical in-person game and settle for an online game if I have to.
When you were growing up, did you play any of the classic board games, sort of Monopoly and so on? And what were your experiences like with them?
Broadly good. There was always some family drama over Monopoly, in the funnest way. And then my uncle was who got me playing Warhammer when I was about 8 or 9. So yeah, I guess I was doomed to be into tabletop. Thinking about it, had the family on every few weekends. My nan would make us play board games, and then my uncle throwing miniatures at me.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I played Warhammer, teenager as well. And I actually made a video about this, how I kind of ran in parallel to TTRPGs and like sort of the indie scene of stuff for probably a full like 20 years or so, where I knew about Warhammer. I was well up on all manner of other bits of sort of nerd culture and things. But D&D, TTRPGs just kind of passed me by, and then suddenly, played. I think it was a Curse of Strahd. Actually, it was a D&D game for the first time. It's like, oh, here's a crossover of all my hobbies and interests and skills, and here's a part of my brain I've not used since I was 9, sort of in a school play or something, and now got this sort of opportunity to really sort of just like light up with it and have bring a lot more of myself to sort of a fun evening around a table with friends.
Yeah, I had a similar thing actually. I knew what Dungeons and Dragons was as a teenager, and that was it. I didn't know what TTRPGs were, just D&D. And then it wasn't until I think I must have been 17 or so actually when Will Wheaton's Tabletop took off on YouTube. And some pals really got into the channel, and we tried a set of RPGs and real board games as opposed to the classic family ones. And what was that? 13, 14 years ago now. And I've been playing RPGs ever since.
Oh, brilliant. Do you have a favorite? Are you a D&D person, or have you now found a whole world of other stuff?
I thoughts and ideas, and they're best used for RPGs apparently. I also have a terrible habit of having to lean into the joke, and it being near impossible for me not to, which means that the more chaotic games work best. I'm gonna go back to Paranoia again, because playing as friend computer means I get to lean into the joke, and that's what makes the game good. To an extent. So probably Paranoia. That being said, all of my fondest and most, I guess, profound moments have all been D&D or Pathfinder, those long form campaigns. I was going to sort of give an honorable shout out to Dungeon World, which is always my go-to system for new players. Because the character sheet is a 5-minute questionnaire. 2d6 for most things. Super simple, really easy for new players. And it still encourages that sort of long form D&D stuff without all the session zero and all of the setup.
Tell me what Hivemind's working on. What is the Hivemind working on just now?
Well, I guess it's not too early to say it. I'm working on an expansion packs for Brother Y.
Ooh. Go on.
I'm looking at a very, very interesting collab for that at the minute. I'm in the very early discussions of. That will be awesome if it happens. And then other than that, Ritual is the big one. It's an occult solo TTRPG. You play it alone in the dark with a ritual circle and an altar cloth, and do physical movements with candles and chant stuff and invoke a mantra to try and save your immortal soul from the ancient beyond ancient king who is trying to claim your soul. It's been interesting to play and playtest. And I've had a small, closer sort of playtest circle for it for the last few months. It's such a weird game. It's been tweaked and very carefully nurtured, I suppose. But I find like I made it up, right? I wrote the damn thing, and I'm finding that it still sets off like that little bit in my lizard brain of like, oh, I'm alone in the dark, and what if this is real? And it's like, no, Josh, you made this up. Calm down. Just like lift the candle and chant the thing. You're okay. But it seems to be, the feedback thus far seems to be, it is legitimately creepy and a bit unsettling.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to demo it at Dragon Meet, and that will sort of be its convention debut. So yeah, weird and hopefully interesting. I guess I designed the game, some would say backwards, in that I started with what I wanted the finished product to be, and then added on mechanics from there. It got thrown up in the air and restarted a few times. But I know, sort of a lot of people generally for a creative process will start with an idea and write and develop it, and sort of kind of see where it ends up. No, I had an end goal, and the whole time it was like, right, what keeps this creepy? What makes it, more atmospheric and stuff? And some of the first things were, right, it's a solo RPG because everything's scarier when you're alone. Play it in the dark by candlelight because the dark is scary. Physicalizing the gameplay and the mechanics was a part of that as well. So it was like, you know what, rolling a dice is going to sort of remind you playing a game. Lifting a candle and chanting a thing to the skies puts you in the spot.
Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been suitably ridiculous, as I hoped, but I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Yeah, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. It has been a blast. I will come back anytime you'll have me.